So you want to build your Danjin and do some crazy things like this. I got you today. I'm going to cover up everything about Danjin and how to play her. Let's get into it. Danjin is a 4-star resonator with 2 playstyles being DPS and sub-DPS Havoc Buffer, mostly played as our skill issue solo cute girl with a high-risk high-reward playstyle. And why is that exactly? Let's take a look at her kit. Let's start with the least important things first. Basic attack is basic attack, and intro skill is intro skill, nothing special as we know. Same goes for liberation skill, all just damage and no special buffs or effects. Now let's go through what is more important. Her outro gives 23% Havoc damage buff for the next Resonator, which makes her a good future-proof character for upcoming Havoc Resonator, already synergizing really well with Havoc Rover. On top of that, she has a really fast-filling concerto bar, which makes her rotations pretty smooth and quick. Now moving on to her skill, this is the what is Danjin built around. She keeps spamming E skill to fill her forte bar but at the cost of her health, and it has 3 forms. Carmine Gleam, just a 1 attack of her skill, pretty straightforward. And next up is Crimson Erosion. To do this you auto-attack twice then press E twice right after. When this attack hits enemy, it leaves Incinerating will effect on them, a flower-like icon on them which increases Danjin damage to them by 20%. Last but not least, the Sanguine Blade. You auto-attack 3 times into pressing E skill 3 times as well. This is the most rapid form of Forte filling. So what happens when you fill Forte bar? Forte bar has a max of 120 Forte points. At half and max your heavy attack turns to that Judgment Cut thing which deals a lot of damage. Having max Forte points gives you huge damage on your heavy attack. While on the other hand, casting at half of the bar suits the sub-DPS style more as it fills Concerto quickly while requiring minimum time. As for her skill attributes, I will talk about these later in the video. So the Forte skills you should be focusing on are Forte bar, Resonance skill and Resonance liberation as for the order of importance. As for the basic attack you can level it up sure, but stop at weekly boss limit as there are important other skills. Danjin has a variety of weapons that she can use, with Blazing Brilliance and Emerald of Genesis being her best in slot weapons. As for the 4-star weapons, Looming Gloss is going to be on top for Battle Pass users, otherwise Commando of Conviction and Lunar Cutter are the best alternatives, but they are restricted to team play as you need to use intro to get their passives. And yeah, if you don't have those, our 5 Sword of Night is the way to go. Next up are Echoes. They are straightforward. You want the Havoc damage set if you are playing main DPS, or Moonlit set if Danjin is sub DPS. As for main stats, they are both the same, with the 4 cost being crit rate or damage based on your overall ratio, but preferably crit damage if you have S4 Danjin, and I will explain this in seconds. As for the 3 costs, you will need double Havoc damage bonus, but if you don't have those, attack percent can work too. Lastly, for 1 cost Echoes you will need attack percent for both of them.
Now let's talk about the substats priority. Here is what you are looking for, with crit rate and damage being first of all, and then attack percent, then heavy attack bonus. As for the final look for your stats, here are the endgame stats you want to have on Danjin. So next up are the sequences. Let's talk about them and which ones you should focus on. S1 provides Danjin with 6% attack per hit on enemies with Incinerating Will effect, which you get after using E2 or Crimson Erosion, stacking up to 30% for 6 seconds, but you lose 1 stack every time you get hit, so it's important to stay hitless. S2 upon attacking enemies with Incinerating Will, Danjin will deal 20% more damage to them. To be honest, I don't know if it's additional 20% on top of what we see in her kit, or it just shows while having S2. Let me know down below in comments. Now for S3, your liberation damage increases by 30%, pretty straightforward and a nice upgrade for ultimate. As for S4, the most important one in my opinion and a really good quality changer, while having 60 points of Forte circuit, which is exactly half of Forte bar, you gain 15% crit rate until you consume your Forte to do empowered heavy attack. This is really good as it enables you to go for more aggressive crit damage weapon or 4 cost on your Echoes, while compensating for nearly 70% value of a crit rate 4 cost, rising your damage limits on Danjin. If you are trying to build pity, and trying to get her sequences, S4 is a really good stop in my opinion. S5 provides Danjin with 15% havoc damage, and doubles this bonus when her HP is lower than 60%, another amazing sequence for her. Last but not least, S6, when Danjin uses Chaos Cleave, the empowered heavy attack, it will provide the team including herself with 20% attack. This enhances both her playstyles, especially the buffing one, and will make her really amazing in the future. Last three sequences are huge upgrades in my opinion. If you like Danjin's playstyle, don't hesitate to go for them. There are two Danjin teams at the moment, first one being the DPS hypercarry team with Mortifi and Verena, while the other one is the Havoc buffing or sup DPS one with Havoc Rover, and of course you can play her solo if you want. For the main DPS team rotation, you start off with filling your forte bar on Danjin and then Echo plus Outro to Mortifi, then press his two skills into swap cancel to Verena and fill her concerto, and then back again to Mortifi to fill his outro. Once his outro is ready, Heron Echo into Danjin's intro and then try to go for two buffed heavy attacks, and then repeat the process by filling Danjin's forte again. Keep doing this until you finish off enemy. For the sup DPS team, you start with Rover's E into Verena swap cancel to fill her concerto. Right before you fill it, you can swap cancel into Danjin to deploy Heron Echo, or just do it before swapping to Rover. When you get Verena's outro ready, Danjin intro and fill her forte to half only, then heavy attack into Rover's intro and dish out his damage, then Dreamless Echo outro and rinse repeat until you get the job done. Guys, I want to point out that Rover in this showcase is only level 70 with level 6 talents, and most of attributes are still locked. This shows how beneficial sup DPS Danjin is, so if you are not a big fan of her DPS playstyle, this can suit you instead. Now that we covered almost all things about Danjin, let's move to our last section for this video. So in this section guys, I'm gonna point out some tricks specifically for solo or DPS Danjin. Some you might already know, some you might not. Let me know down below in the comments if you learn anything new from this. So let's say you fill your forte like this. You will need 4 combos, 2 Crimson Erosion and 2 Sanguine Blade to fulfill when you start with basic attacks. Doesn't seem quite bad. But what happens if you start with E instead of basic attack? Much better, right? Only needing 2 Sanguine Blades and 1 Crimson Erosion to fill the forte. This is crucial sometimes for time challenges like Tower of Adversity. Dreamless is a great echo with great damage and large area of effect that makes it broken in team gameplay, but for solo you will end up either being hit or at least cancelling its animation to dodge, which in return means you are losing its own damage along with the damage you could do if you were on field. So we fix such a thing by using the Havoc Shroom 3 cost as our main echo, providing you with decent damage and auto-targeting and leaving you keeping the damage output on field and safe, so you can dodge or parry without losing DPS. Remember earlier when I said I'm gonna talk about skill attributes? So when Danjin dodges and uses counter-attack, she can instantly use Crimson Erosion and, on top of that, gives her a lot of forte points. Notice how fast the forte fills when I choose to dodge instead of parrying the Memphis, leaving me with only 1 Sanguine Blade to fill forte again in like 7 or 8 seconds. Danjin's dodge counter-attack also has a lot of immunity frames, so you can actually abuse this to not die. Notice how I'm 1 health in doing this until I fill forte to give him the finishing blow. As we all know, Danjin's animations are quick and smooth, making her perfect for parrying. But if you are struggling with timing thing, E1 is actually perfect method for parrying, even when pressed little early too. Let's take this clip as an example. There are 2 attacks coming and you might be thinking one is a dodge and the other is counterattack to parry the real one. But no, you can actually E1 to get both. Notice that E1 is timed perfectly for the clone but kinda early for the real one. This is something you can't do with a basic attack, and trust me, you don't wanna parry the clone first then the real one. You may encounter that Memphis bug. In general, E1 is goated. Wait, you can actually do this? Yes, this is one of the most broken thing about Danjin. Heavy attack can actually make you untargetable by bosses and most of monsters. Alright guys, that's to wrap all things up. Before the end of the video, I wanna give a shout out to one of my viewers for encouraging me to make this video. I hope you are watching this bro, and I hope you found this video useful. Hope you all too found this helpful, and best of luck on building your Danjin. And guys, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in something or have any question. Just let me know in comments and I will respond as soon as possible. Do not forget to leave like and subscribe if this was helpful for you, and as always, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one. Peace.